life of love, life of love, with Julie Hilson.
Hello, God, Force, Creator, Divinity. Thank you for bringing Darlene and I together in this creation. I honor her path. I honor her journey. I honor her team. And I welcome her team to collaborate with my team as I call in my guides, my Akashic team, my ancestral guides, my angels, my higher self. Today I'm even going to call in the timeline of myself that might have made choices that I would change, and welcome everything as we're stepping into this golden age of acceptance and inclusion and divinity. And I welcome in all of our divine feminine energies, our Marys. Feels so good. I'm so happy to have everyone here as we create this container, and I look forward to bringing forth a message for the highest good. And I trust that the universe will provide the energy for this episode to reach the hearts that need to soften and the ears that can hear this message and share it as we help uplift humanity and our opening to God's plan for us and our connection. May the universe and creator force work through us and for us to bring forth our highest code of divinity, and our timeline that can serve all of humanity, however that looks. I anchor in this loving creation, and I thank everyone who's helping and sharing and being a part of this. As I open my heart and my clarity of message for this. And again, I thank Darlene and her team as we come together. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, for having me.
Well, hello, dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Life of Love, where we gather each week to bring forth a message for the highest good, to show up in our curiosity and our loving hearts, however it looks that day, whether it's a clear sailing day or a day that we're hitting the bumps and we're like, I just need a little resource. And I'm here for all of it. So yes, I'm so delighted to have Darlene here. She's been part of helping people for 35 years, and she's had a lifetime of connection with it's mediumship, medical intuitive. Darlene Vandegrit is a force, and she has a wonderful website, and she's going to tell us about that in her upcoming book. But she helps people search for answers, needing clarity and finding their purpose for what was and what can be in the areas of health, relationships, career, past lives, cosmic connection, and mediumship. So she's got a laundry list of, what do you call it? Her abilities. Darlene, thanks for being on Life of Love. I can't wait to share your message. Yeah, it's just such a pleasure. Darlene is up in northern New York, and she's having snow, and today's Martin Luther King Day, so we're celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King and his message of inclusion, acceptance, redemption, forgiveness. We've all been part of this mass consciousness. So Darlene and I were having our pre-interview, get to know each other a little better, and it's just such a divine connection of spirituality and bridging the gap and bringing in more of our divine feminine. So we're going to dive into that. So I hope everyone sticks around for the whole time. The first thing I wanted to ask you was, what is a cosmic mediator? And maybe you can give us some background as to how you realized you're connecting to cosmic.
Okay.
And I just want to explore that a little, because I'm just fascinated with it. Ever since I was a kid, I've always been enthralled with, E.T. and Lost in Space and all these movies that, Puff the Magic Dragon, the Crystal People. I used to watch I don't even remember the name of the show, but it was like on after school, and it was about crystal people. People that connected to crystals. They were like trolls.
Trolls. Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't like the Trolls, the movie that you see now. It was like a half-hour show, but maybe it was in my dreamland. Like, we have memories from childhood that don't really match up with everyone else's, so I'm open to that too. But yeah, let let my audience get to know you a little bit by exploring your cosmic connection and what it means to you and what it's meant to you, sharing it.
So, as a child, I don't know where the perception came in or the conversation about ET. It didn't feel like it was really in the family, but I remember being young and my bed was right under a window, and I would turn my back to the window so I didn't have to see them come through. And I don't even know what the them were at that point, but it was just a fear level of, okay, if I turn my back, I won't see them, whoever the them were. But I never really had any understanding or knowing of what that meant. But in 91, what happened was, and I had been along my path of doing massage work and learning kinesiology and learning how, to work with couples. I mean, I spent many years in whatever my clients needed for me to try to figure out how humans tick. Like that was my whole thing as a kid. How do humans tick and what are they about? And 91, there was a therapist that was doing workshops my mother and I worked together. We had a business together. It was a 3-story old barn, and we used to teach workshops, and she would do her therapy and I would do my therapy. And what happened was in that first workshop, they brought her in and she wanted to find out, there was a dream that she thought that she had that she didn't understand years before. And they recorded it. And when I listened to the dream, it was about an abduction that she had from 2 gray ETs. And I listened to that and I listened to her terror because she was she was hypnotized. And I listened to her terror in it. And the voice came up and it was like, we did not do that. And I'm like, who? What is that? What do you mean we did not do that? I did not do that. And I started channeling. So I channeled for about 5 years with a being called Eli Wazar. And bizarrely enough, he was reptilian. And so it drew in a bunch of people that he was in a lifetime with. And it was upstate New York. I lived in Pennsylvania at that time, but it brought all these people down that became my clients and worked with him for about 5 years. And I didn't like the channeling. I didn't like feeling out of the loop and watching what was happening or any of that. I didn't like the energy that was coming through my body. And so I asked, is there another way to do this? Because I don't want to do this. And they were like, yeah, be a mediator. So they brought me into a place which was originally called the council room. And what I would do there, it's a teaching facility that's in the higher realms, or it's in the cosmic order. I would go there in a meditation and it would be a teaching facility. So there's a white table and beings would come in and they would teach. And there was a lot of humans there, but they felt like they were either asleep in dream state or they were in meditation state. And so the information came and I became more of like, if there was this being and this being, much later that happened. If there was 2 beings that needed to come to an agreement or whatever, they would start to train me to do that. What would you say if this one is in this certain position and this one is in this one? How would you bring them together? How would you mediate with them? How would you help them to understand each other? And that took about 4 years of training in doing that. So, but it was much more comfortable.
Wow. Okay. So my mind is sort of blown right now because I'm trying to figure out how, when you went to the white table room to do your training, were you in a meditative state, or how did you interact in that ethers to get to the frequency to be there? My first experience of going there was way before the channeling. And it came through, my mother was reading a book, and I wish I could remember the name of the little book, but it was teaching how to go into alpha state. That was back in the East, I guess it was. How do you go into alpha state? And I read the book and I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want to do that. But I had 3 little kids under 5. So every time they took a nap, I wanted to figure this out and I would end up sleeping because I was exhausted. You're exhausted.
Right. So I was like, oh, that isn't going to happen. And so the one time I felt like, oh, I can do it. Like, this feels like I'm more awake. I just had a cup of coffee. I'm more awake and they're asleep or they were out of the house. And I went immediately like through the planets. Like, I could see stars zooming past me. I could see all of this. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep going. I don't know where this is going, but this is pretty cool. I'm going to keep going. And what I found out through that process is that, and I teach people this too, if you start to move into something that you feel like you're on, don't cut it. Don't say, oh my God, I'm really afraid. Trust it, move into it, and start talking. Because it's a different part of our brain that works, right? So once you're in it, it's the conversation. Like I noticed that if I don't say anything, it would stop, it would freeze frame. But if I said, oh, this is what's happening, there's this happening here, and it would move. So it was very interesting to have the correlation. So I used to record what was happening. I used to record it so that it kept it moving. And that first time I had the 3 children. I was still married at the time, and they took me to a, what do you call it? They took me down this field, and there was a huge oak tree. And against the oak tree was a ladder that had 3 rungs, and the top one was broken. And a voice came in and said, you were supposed to have 4 children, but you will only have 3. And that was true, because my marriage ended within like 6 months to a year after that. It was very profound to have that energy and not knowing who that was. The voice sounded familiar, but it wasn't mine. And I knew the fascinating piece of it is I wasn't making it up. And I thought, wow, this is really cool, because it was coming in from a different way. It wasn't like you had to think about it to say, oh yeah, this would happen, and oh yeah, that would happen. It wasn't that. It just came in. So I say that came in way before the channeling came in.
Wow. So your signature you must be set up to be part of that.
Well, I found that later my mother was, so yeah.
I'm in awe, and I'm like so blown away, because the way you describe it is so, it's just easy. And I think that the more people can grasp the idea that it's simple, just start talking, be at ease, and know that you're safe, that so many things could open up. Like your divinity is all around you. It's just saying yes, saying the words to affirm it, and putting yourself in that place. And I'll give an example. My husband was helping my son change his car battery, and the bolt on the thing that holds the battery in place, the bracket, had oxidized, and his car is a 2015, so it's not new. They're in the garage working, and I'm in the house with my other son. This is over winter break, and I said, angels of broken down cars and batteries that don't work, please go and help. And it wasn't like I went in my room and did this whole, like, lit a candle, or I didn't smear anything. I just was sitting in the kitchen with my other son, asking the angels to help him change this battery, because it was becoming a really big nuisance. We were ready to eat dinner already. It's just like, I know the angels can help with this. And within 7 minutes, they're like, we got it. It's all done. And, my husband does this whole thing where he like puts grease on his face, so it looks like it was harder. It's so funny. But my other son looked at me. He's like, it's real. And I'm like, yeah, it's real. You just have to ask. And it's not a big deal.
And that's the thing, if you want to connect in that level, right? First of all, it's setting the intention, like you did in the beginning of this. So you set the intention, you put a protective bubble around you, sacred space, whatever it feels like. It's your space, right? You really own this space, and nothing can come in that's not to your highest good or to others' highest good. But it's also about going to that space and saying, show me something I don't know. Show me something about today, and watch for the synchronicity. Or if if you have auditory connections or you have visual connections, they might, with your eyes closed, they might show you something. They might show you a basketball. Well, what does that mean? Because it's developing the conversation, the language that might be different, right? So they show you something. It's up to you to define what that means. I
have a friend, she feels it, and then she describes the feeling. Like when she's reading, she'll read angels, and she's like, I feel this. The angels are having me feel this, and whatever comes out of her mouth is relevant. So it's really fun to hear you say that, because it's different for everybody. Everyone has different receptors. just see what happens. And like you said, talk about it, create language around it. That's our common. I love it. I love it. So we were going to talk about bridges today, and meaning that we're in a transition, right? And you said it so well in our pre-interview about the symbolism of the bridge and how we can all help bridge humanity to this next place that we all yearn for. We all want more abundance. We all want more peace. We want the chaos to settle. We want the fires to stop, the ice to melt. We want to see heaven on earth, or have glimpses of it. So can you talk about the metaphor, the bridge, what it means to you, and then what I'm hoping is this will inspire other people to look at their own bridges, and we could all create our bridges. And it's important for me, for my audience in this community that I have, that we ask tough questions or be curious about what's being presented, because this chaos is here to dump over the laundry basket, to show us things that need to be fixed. So we're not complacent and we're not distracted. We're tuned into what's going on, because we are change makers and we're creators. So yeah, give me your bridge metaphor and we can riff off that.
Well, there's so many clients that in the last year that have been coming, and somewhere in their session, the bridge shows up for who they are. So whether that's a bridge in one dimension or another, like we're talking about with channeling and stuff, that's having one, you're here as a human being in this particular form, and that you might be able to travel and be in another dimension at another level, right? So that's a bridge. How do you relate? That's part of a mediator, right? Is being able to be in one part and another, not sacrificing anything, and being able to bring truth or wisdom or knowledge or whatever that is into both pieces, so it balances them. And then we have the bridges that even within yourself. How do you bridge the masculine and the feminine when there really isn't any difference? We have been trained that there's a difference, but they blend really well. A man can go and cook dinner, and 100 years ago, that wasn't something that men did, and women can go out and they can get a job, and they can be in the arts, and they can also be in a football team if they wanted to be. So it's that place of integration of the bridge and what it provides for all of us. So taking a look at their own lives of, what is a bridge? Do they bridge between their kids? Is there issues that are between them and their children? Can they be the bridge? Or is it between both of their boys, or their son and their daughter? Can they be the bridge for them to help them understand each other? It's clearing the bridges of whatever debris that it is, so you can be a better bridge. But it's balance. It's how do you balance both sides? I have somebody that is very spiritual and very much in the big world with money and in the influence of everybody. And yet for him to find that balance, it's almost like a ladder was explained to him. Like, if everything's going well in the world of where there's money and people and influence, then you need to balance the spiritual level. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean, that you need to meditate more? Do you need to be alone more? Do you need to do something? And then it's like walking up two ladders. Each one, you have to bridge it.
You lit up so many things in me when you're talking, because the whole idea of division, if there's a division within ourselves, then that shows around us. So the metaphor of the bridge, bringing both sides together. There's no us and them. There's no masculine and feminine. I'm not saying that, they're both really, really important, right? Like, you can operate in the masculine energy, you can operate in the feminine energy. And I think that's what you're talking about. Like, spirituality, you might think of it more as more of a feminine thing, and amassing material things or comforts, that's more of a masculine thing to go out and get it, and it's more feminine to receive. But we all dance in both. And like you said, that balance, you don't want to be too far in one that you're dependent or, you're super controlling because that's an unbalanced life and your bridge is going to collapse because
Yeah.
it's just such a gooey metaphor. And bridges raise you up from where you don't want to be. Like you don't want to be in the rough seas. I mean, we have our moments, but isn't it so much nicer to raise up to a higher frequency and see the possibilities, see the answers with clarity. And when you can get up to the higher ground, all of a sudden it doesn't seem so bad. You can see options and you can see that it might not even matter that something didn't go your way. There's no judgment because you're so high above it. It doesn't really affect you. So I just, this bridge thing is really ticking me today. I tell you, I'm really loving it.
Yeah. And I think we all have that capability of, I think we're being invited in to look at how we are bridging the gaps in all places, how we are bringing the past forward, how we are healing our ancestors in some way, because that's the other thing that I'm noticing in the last 4 or 5 years is bringing ancestors into therapy in a way, whether that's on the spiritual level because they passed, or is it somebody that you bring in, your mother or father, because you need to handle something with them. But it's that ancestors, that my work and what I truly believe in is in this time period, and it's been this way for, I would say, I mean, it's been a slow coming, but more so now, is that we're working on our timelines of past lives to heal them, to address them, to heal them. And it's not all negative. Those past lives have gifts for us that we can incorporate into this lifetime. So once they're healed, then the past can become more of the past. And then we can live in this time of crossing the bridge to be in more of what we want to create on earth, as opposed to what we were told that that's all we could create, right? We have to stay divided. Women do this, men do that. That's just one small piece of it, countries, one does this, one does that. There's always division. There's always somebody to blame. There's very little accountability. But if we are accountable for who we have always been, then it opens the door for more of who we can be.
I love that. And with your clients, do you notice once they experience what that past life or what the timeline that needs to be resolved, once that's accepted and looked at, do you feel like there's a weight lifted, that there's more clarity in where they need to go now? Or they're more at peace, or what do you see the benefits of that? I mean,
well, once they understand the dynamics of who they were or what has happened to them or what they created, right, in that other timeline, their perception changes. And that's what being human is about, right? If your perception changes, your energy changes. If your energy changes, your chemistry changes, your DNA can even change. And if that, whatever has happened in that past life is affecting this lifetime and your perception changes about it, then that event or that person or whatever that relationship is changes.
And you can move forward with that.
It's just very different, it's just very different. I mean, I relate this, I think I mentioned it in one other place, but about 10 years ago, my oldest son, and I thought he was going to die because I thought God was going to punish me, right? So I never thought that I was going to have this kid that would live. And when he lived, it was a real shock to me, but he was always a little different than my other 2 kids. He was always a little different. And I felt like I had to take care of him. He wasn't able to hold down a job for a while, right? And I was doing a meditation with good friends of mine, and a past life came up that I had no idea about, of where I abused him. And my God, I mean, I just cried for such a long time. But when I came out of that, I was like, I will do whatever I need to do to help him in this lifetime. If I created his inadequacies or had any part in that I will do it. And what happened in that commitment and doing whatever I felt like he needed, it didn't matter if it was money, it didn't matter support in getting a house, it didn't matter of any of that. Within like several years, he got a great job. He just landed the place that I thought that he would never get to. And I attribute it to my perception of him changed. It wasn't confining, like, oh, this kid's never going to get his life together, right? I'll have to take care. It was that resentment that, why? Like, he's costing me all this. And it wasn't that. It was a joy to say, I am healing what I had done to this child and how I needed to just do that. And things changed.
And love.
And
You
look,
came at the relationship with love instead of service because you felt bad for him, or that, like, you came from an empowered, loving place, which is beautiful.
yeah, and things do change. You have control. Like, listen, you have control. You have choice in how you react and how you are with others and how you perceive them. And it doesn't have to be in a negative way. If you take a look at people, they have woundedness. We all have it. We all have it, whether it comes from this lifetime or 100 lifetimes before. And that sticks with us. It makes us who we are. But if you're rubbing against that woundedness, try to see it as woundedness. Try to see it. It's not that they're obstinate or they're mean or they're bullies or they're whatever. What happened to them that created that? Because we're not as an infant that way.
Right. And what could you do, like, to self-advocate? Like, if you feel like somebody's a bully, maybe if you step back and say, well, have I really told them how I feel, or have I given them boundaries? Have I taken care of myself around them? And, that ability to take care of yourself and be, and I'm going to say empowered again, to set limits, because sometimes living your life of love means having limits to what you're going to accept. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. It's just your limit. You don't have to judge it. You have to judge them. You can just be like, this is where I stand, and I'm divine. I don't accept, and it's a whole different thing than you're a bully, you're a jackass, you're mean, you're this, you're, whatever it is, you're not labeling them. You're just saying that doesn't work for me. And no ball of anything but acceptance around it. Beautiful, beautiful way to be.
Yeah, you accept it and you set a boundary if that's what's happening. But you can also flip that around and say, am I a bully? Have I ever been a bully? Am I a bully to myself even? For those that are overachievers, do I bully myself? Do I say, you have to get up in the morning and you have to do it this way and it has to be perfect? That's bullying. That's internal bullying. So look at it. That person may be a reflection of something that you need to change in you, as well as set a boundary so that doesn't influence you or harm you in any way.
I love that. That makes so much sense to look at it with that lens too. And I love how we're here and we have free will to make these choices, and you can always choose to have a different perspective. And that's the empowerment of what you're talking about, and healing those timelines. And then, you healing your timeline affects everybody else's. So it's a great way to bridge to our golden age of where we want to be and where we're going. I'm so excited to be part of this transition. So, go ahead.
No, we're just shifting energy. I mean, when you change a timeline or you heal it, or I changed my perception of my son, I shifted the energy. And that's basically what we're doing. As creators, we're shifting energy from what was to what can be, or what will be, or what is important, or healing.
And I love that it's coming up about how we're creator beings, and God put us here to create. And it doesn't have to be a work of art. I mean, art's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with art, but you don't have to pigeonhole creation into something creative in the traditional sense. Like, create these divisions of everything that's powerful. In my opinion, that's a hyperbole, but the whole idea that creativity is only for people who are selling artwork or part of cinema, that's bogus. Like, let's flip over that laundry basket and talk about how you can create your reality every moment based on how you're going to respond and what you're looking to see. Yes. Because there's been psychology studies that, 5 people are in the same situation, but they all see a different thing happen because each person's looking for a different thing, and your mind will process what you're looking for. And so that's a powerful concept as well. And so I always want to remind people, if things aren't going your way, look at how your outlook is. Are you looking for something positive? Or are you looking for something to affirm that you're having a bad day? Once you label you're having a bad day,
Oh,
the
yeah.
universe wants to fulfill that.
Yeah. Yeah. That negative self-talk is really pretty potent.
And it can be so potent the other way.
Yeah.
I'm having a day of heaven on earth. So maybe everybody has a golden bridge for, creating that scenario. And it's okay to have I'm not saying you can't have a bad day. That's fine. Like, things don't always go your way. We weren't put here to have bliss, 365 days a year. We're here to experience, and maybe we're healing things that need to be healed. It'll all be clear to us when we get the total download at the end of this life. I love to have input of people who cosmic travel and connect like you do, because it's affirming. It's affirming that we're doing the
Yeah. And then you become more accountable when you're not in this physical form of, wow, yeah, I'm a real strong component of the Ho'opono. For people that don't know, it's called Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you and thank you. And I use it in two ways, like create a journal of anybody that you have felt that you hurt or you harmed or you could have done better, whether that's a relationship, a parent, a child, any of that. And do that process because what it does is it aligns you more with not only them, but within yourself. So you're not holding that because you're being accountable. I could have done this better. I'm sorry for doing this, this, and this. And the other thing is doing it with your physical body. If you've had any abuse, if you've had any accidents or anything that has been invasive to the body, when you go back to that age or ages of those things that happen and do the I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you, a lot of all the time, I'll say, aligns the body more with your present day. Because I find out in being a medical intuitive that if there's been long history of surgeries or abuse, the body splits off in a way. So it can become more rebellious. So then they end up with food allergies, or they end up with something immune issues, or they end up with, because the body doesn't trust anymore, doesn't trust what's happening, right? Doesn't trust that you'll make a good decision. So when you clear those tiny timelines of what's happened in this lifetime, it brings it more into alignment. So you get more cooperation, but it's also another opportunity for you to make the best decisions for your body.
I can totally understand why the cosmic realm wants you as a mediator. That is so awesome. It is so awesome because, you think, oh, past life regression. Past life regress this life. Start here. That's so.
Start here.
I
Past
love
life
it.
may not be your cup of tea, and that's fine.
I think the hardest thing about that, the honesty about what you did to yourself, is fear. And I'm going to say it's fear because you're facing the idea that you didn't make the best choice at the time, and fear that you're not good enough. And once you can unravel and face that ball of energy that you missed the mark and you still love yourself, you're still okay. And, it's not an avoidance. You face the fear and you've decided to love and move on. And it's a big difference, because that avoidance, just like you said, it pushes it further from your body. You become more disconnected from your heart, which is where all your power is. The creative juices comes from your heart. So it's worth facing it, even though it can be scary. But anything that brings up fear is the opposite of, to me, this is my opinion, the opposite of love is fear. So anything that keeps you in a fear vibration blocks your love. So facing it and owning it helps you move from fear to love.
Owning it and forgiving yourself. I think that is one of the biggest, hardest things to do, because I hear people on my own personal experience. You could be sound asleep and you go to wake up in the morning and all of a sudden you think, oh, wow, I did that, like it was really hard, or I could have spoke to them in a different way, or, those regrets, remorse, forgiving yourself for you were doing the best that you knew to do at that time and you've learned from it. So that Ho'oponopono, if that surfaces, go back to that person, whether that's real time or that's in a letter that they don't ever get, or that's just a writing in some way, because it frees the energy. If we are energy and we acknowledge what we've done and we could have done better, it frees up the energy.
I love that. And it's been a year since I got my horrible breast implants out. It was a year ago yesterday. Yeah, they were awful. And I had to forgive myself for having them put in. I mean, some people have, breast cancer and it's part of their recovery. It was elective. I breastfed 2 boys and I was like, I needed a change. That 20-something-year-old Julie thought she needed to have these implants to feel whole again, instead of letting my body recover and do what it needed to do to regain its voluptuousness. I don't know what you want to say, but I didn't trust that my body was going to heal and feel sexy again. So I got these implants and both of them had ruptured. It was horrible.
Wow.
They hurt, it's just like, it was awful. And to get them out and to be where I am now is such a different, but I have a coach, and she said, Julie, write yourself a letter and forgive yourself, because she knew that I had this guilt and, I felt bad for having this elective surgery. And then, it was painful getting them out too.
Yeah.
So that was a whole, and I still have a piece of paper where I wrote a letter to myself, acknowledging all the places I came from for that. And so, yeah, I can relate to that. And, now I can eat foods that I couldn't eat before. I have clarity of mind, and like my body can trust me again. And it's so crazy because I can't drink anymore because I don't want to do that to my body. Like, I don't like that lower frequency, but so much has changed since I started honoring my vessel and treating myself with the divinity that I deserved, and telling yourself, I love you and I got you. It's a huge thing. And I'm not trying to preach or say, oh, I've done this, but I can relate is all I'm saying.
And it's raising your consciousness. I mean, if that's what we're here for, is to raise the consciousness and our vibration, doing that and owning it and forgiving yourself is raising your consciousness. It's an automatic, because you're taking accountability, you're being responsible, and you're in some way letting your body know that I was at this point, but now I'm not. So you grew up, in some way, in making another decision.
Yeah, and it took years off me, I swear. And that I just appreciate where you're coming from so much as a medical medium, and the whole idea that your body is this vessel, and you travel, you're connected to the higher, like you're taking care of this 3D body. Also, it's just you're so comprehensive and include, like, I want to say cohesive in what you're saying. You're not one place and another. You're including everything. So that's a really fun place to come from. And I appreciate and I honor that expertise that like you said, you specialize in what you see people need. So that's how you've gotten to be so dynamic and interactive with that. So it's really fun. It's really fun. The only other medical medium I've ever associated with was Anthony Williams, but he's masculine and you're feminine, so it's a lot more fun to relate to.
To relate to, yeah.
Oh my gosh! So what's your book coming out about?
So it's called Earthbound: The Genesis of the Great Experiment. So it is my many timelines with what was the Council of 28 that came in more so. First I channeled the Elie Mazar, and then he brought in, there was a Council of 12. And then when my mother passed, within a week, the rest of the council came. So it's a council of 28. And it's about their journeys together through human evolution and through Earth evolution from their perspective and what's happened. So there's a lot of time travel. It's a series. So the first book is really about how Ellie comes to Earth from where he originated from. You saw or you listened to the Blue Crystal podcast. So it's him meeting her, as his mentor, and she sends him on a trek that really has to do with all his journey of spiritual teaching and who he meets and how to incorporate, what we consider the 7 seeds, which is, allowance and acceptance and commitment and all of that. How do you weave that into becoming more human? Because his purpose in coming in to this timeline was really to help humanity, and it was really to become all that he could be. So there's so many messages in the series of books that are really about so humans can become more than they can be. They can become everything that they hope and know that they can be.
This is so fun because it's been a couple weeks now that I've been like, I want more of an intergalactic connection. And then you come and give me glimpses of it. Maybe it's not me personally. Maybe it's me bringing forth people like you so that other people can know that it exists, that your creations and your connections are possible. They're there. I mean, this isn't like something that you can talk to everybody about. So if this is coming across your field and it's lighting you up, then it's like, yes, like this is really fun. Thank you, universe.
We don't incarnate. There's more forms out there than this particular way of being human, right? There's more forms that we can choose to be for whatever reasons we want to evolve into learning something or knowing something. But yeah, it was a big eye opener for me too, to realize that there's other shapes and forms and not just this.
So fun. Well, I've adored this, and we're coming up on our time. I want to respect your schedule, but yeah. So, what was your website again? Because there's so many resources on there too.
Yeah, soulunion.com.
Okay, and I'll put that in the show notes as a link so that people can find your incredible work and all your creations. And again, I'm so honored to connect with you and create this. This has been just a delight.
Thanks, Julie. It's been a pleasure. And it's always good to find like-minded people, curious, like-minded people.
Yeah, joyful. Stick with the joy and curiosity, because that's how you get through this with grace. And I think that's what we're anchoring, is that divine feminine grace and just flowing through life. And, it's a really fun thing to anchor, and I'm honored to help do that. So thank you for helping me.
Thank you. Very much appreciated.